to this live podcast on Twitch, where you can find the news from the research industry that how our researchers keep on researching on various topics and domains to keep our lifestyle better, of course. And yes, this article posted on our website named postscientist.com. If you're willing to check it out, please check it out. Otherwise, listening to this podcast will be enough for you guys, as it acts like an archive on the daily basis, providing you the information from the research industry. So, without wasting any further time, let's get started with the first topic of the day. Using vibration to control a swarm of tiny robots. Okay, let's see. Vibrating tiny robots could revolutionize research. Individual robots can work collectively as one to create a major advance in everything from construction to surveillance. But micro robots small scale is ideal for drug delivery, disease diagnosis, and even surgeries. Despite their potential, micro robots' size often means that they have limited sensing, communication, mobility, and computation abilities, but new research from the Georgia Institute of Technology enhance their ability to collaborate efficiently. The work offers a new system to control swarm of 303 millimeter micro Bristol robots, micro robots, ability to aggregate and disperse controllably without onboard sensing. Moving on, okay, sorry. The breakthrough is unique to Georgia Tech expertise in electric and computer engineering and robotics, and its push for interdisciplinary collaborations. By collaborating with robotics, we were able to close the gap between single robot design and swarm control, said Azadeh Ansari, an assistant professor in the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. ECE. So I guess the different elements were there and we just made the connection. Okay, great. The researcher present the work controlling collision induced aggregation in a swarm of micro Bristol robots in IEEE transactions on robotics. The challenges of micro robots, while larger robots can control movement through sensing the environment and wirelessly sending this data to each other, micro robots do not have the capacity to carry the same sensor, communications, or power units. In this study, the researcher instead utilized inter-robot physical interaction to encourage robots to swarm. Microrobots are too small to interpret and make decisions, but by using the collision between them and how they respond to frequency and the amplitude of global vibration actuation, we could influence how individual robots move and the collective behaviors of hundreds and thousands of these tiny robots, said Xinjian Hao, an ECE PhD student. Okay. These behavior or motility characteristics determine how microbots move linearly and the randomness in their rotation. By using vibration, the researcher could control this mobility characteristic and perform more motility induced phase separation MIPS. The researcher borrowed the concept from thermodynamics when an agitated material can change phases from solid to gas to liquid. The researcher manipulated the level of vibration to influence the microbubble to form clustered or disperse to create good spatial coverage. To better understand these phase separation, they developed computational models and a live tracking system for the 300 robot swarm using computer vision. This enabled the researcher to analyze micro robots' behavior and the motion data that give rise to the swarm characteristics. This project is the first complete pipeline using these MEMS that can be generalized to different microboard swarms. We hope people will find that using physical interactions is another new way to control the micro robots, which initially was very difficult to do. Okay, okay. Collaborating for innovation. The success of the project can be attributed to the interdisciplinary nature of the research. While the EC researcher had expertise in building microelectromechanical system MEMS to fabricate technologies such as computer chips or micro robots. The robotic researchers brought modeling experience, and Ansari first created micro Bristol boards in 2019 from 3D printed polymers, which seeded the collaboration with IRM director Professor Seth Hutchinson, Hutchinson and Professor Magnus Eggersted, now at University of California, Irvine, and their PhD students Sid Maya and Gennaro Nota Noto Mista. We knew more about how to build micro devices and actuate them, and they knew more about the algorithm modelings and closed loop and open loop control. Ansari said. So it was very good interdisciplinary work because each group benefited from the new perspective that the others brought to this. Okay, okay. Moving on towards next topic. Superfast optical laser could replace radio transmitters in critical communications. Okay, let's see. A team of Western Australian researchers have found a way to avoid the need to use radio transmitters in critical communication using new technology featuring superfast optical lasers. Radio transmitters, which are still in use, were developed over a century ago. The researchers from the International Center for Radio Astronomy Research (ICRAR) have been working on this project for 2 years, with their findings published in scientific reports. Although optical communication have been in use since the 1980s, government and industry have continued to rely on radio transmission technology in settings such as satellite communication due to atmospheric turbulence. Atmospheric turbulence causes laser beams to drift away from their intended target. While there have been advances in the use of optical wireless communication in recent years, this WA discovery addresses the turbulence issue by using a very fast steering mirror that can correct for turbulence at a rate of hundreds of thousands per second. This means that superior optical wireless transmission can be used in more settings, reducing the need for reliance on slower radio transmission. Lead researcher Dr. Shane Walsh explains how his team have found a way to use optical communication to fix upon a rapidly moving target in a turbulent environment with an uninterrupted high speed signal. This is a culmination of more than 2 years of research and testing and takes ground to space communication from what was effectively a dial up speed in turbulence to a superfast broadband speed. I'm proud that our WA team of researchers, Western Australian team of researchers, has been able to contribute a piece of this critical communication puzzle, combining existing research with our team's specialist expertise, he said. The team discovery was put through its phases using a drone which simulated a rapidly moving target. As the next step, the researcher planned to test the technology with a higher altitude aircraft and ultimately a spacecraft in low each orbit. Researchers are now developing a purpose-built optical communication ground station in Western Australia, which, uh, when complete, will allow them to further develop and commercialize the technology. It is expected to be used by industry and governments alike in applications as diverse as communication with spacecraft, meteorology, defense, and disaster management. Of course, it's gonna be used in various applications and various products. So great, man. Moving on towards next topic, hacking the metaverse. Hacking the metaverse. Cybersecurity researchers help protect people in immersive virtual reality. Okay, let's see. About 2 million people connected to virtual reality handset every month in 2020. Virtual reality or VR industry revenues are projected to grow from $12 billion to $100 billion in the next 5 years. The race to develop the most popular VR application and capture the most consumer demand. VR software developers and companies are not always implementing measures to protect consumer from getting hacked. Oftentimes, the products are released while still under development. LSU cybersecurity professor Abby Bagley is one of the first people in the world to study the security of immersive virtual reality on X reality system and to provide solution to this fast-paced industry to protect people who use these new products. Everyone needs to be aware that all technology has security risks. Once someone can access your device, they can potentially steal your money by accessing your banking and credit card accounts, wreak havoc on our life, said Bagley, who is a professor in the LSU Department of Computer Science and a Center for Computational Technology. His new research is published in Computer and Security. Okay. Bagley and a cybersecurity student, including lead author Martin Vondrasek, who is now a security research and PhD student at Brno University of Technology in the Czech Republic, tested a popular social and entertainment XR applications primarily used by people to watch movies with others in a virtual environment to see if they could hack into users' headsets and computers. The researchers discovered they could and were able to take over a user VR headset, look at their screen, turn on their microphone, and install a virus on their computer, all without them knowing it. When another user entered the virtual room and interacted with the unknowingly affected user, they become infected too, similar to how viruses spread between people in reality. In addition, the researchers were able to enter the virtual room using a different and undetected device and act like a virtual invincible peeping Tom. No one would expect an invincible intruder in their real living room, watching their activities and even move. This intrusion can disturb people's privacy on a very personal level, Bagley said. Children and young people are gravitating towards and using many of these virtual reality applications and headsets, which makes ensuring safety and security measures even more important. VR and XR devices are collecting a lot of personal information such as the structure of the physical room you are in as well as your eye, hand and body movements. This information can be used to cause you and your family physical, emotional and financial harm, he said. By hacking into a VR headset and camera, the researchers were able to disorient user, delete physical boundary to make them walk into walls for fall down staircases in in reality. Fortunately, the company that developed the VR application Bagley and his student tested in this paper accepted all the recommendations the researcher provided in the responsible disclosure. Developer and scientists can now use the tools the researcher developed to make secure VR software. The vulnerabilities that we discovered could have been prevented as a part of our research. We implemented several analytical and attacking tools, example exploits, and vulnerability signatures. We hope to publish them as free and open source software to improve the state of the art of vulnerability detection and prevention in VR, Wonstrek said. In addition, virtual reality applications are being used in education, healthcare, critical infrastructure, and military defenses. This research is critical to identify the security weakness in popular XR applications. We need legislator and organization to know the potential harm it can cause and require the companies developing these new technology to find the right balance between security, privacy, and safety. Before the massive adoption, said Kavya Pearlman, founder and information security researcher of global non-profit standard developing organization XR Safety Initiative or XRSI. How to join the metaverse safely? Be diligent and understand new technology has both positive and negative consequences. Weed on the side of not always trusting it and use it like you are a scientist. Experiment with things. Be very critical of the technology you are using and try to understand what they are doing with your data, Bagley said. Unfortunately, there are not many platforms in which users can educate themselves about these new technologies, and most of the information people see comes from the companies selling VR products, which naturally do not draw attention to potential privacy and security risks. We react to this by bringing our research to public attention in global media. Our hope is that it will help raise awareness of VR, its strengths, and also its associated dangers, Bagley said. Moving on to this next topic, new acoustic resonators based on commercial field effect transistors. A key objective of electronic engineering study focusing on radio communication is the development of increasingly smaller, lighter, and small low power radio components. This could be achieved by integrating all radio components into a single chip, for instance, by combining acoustic microelectromechanical systems MEMS with complementary metal oxide semiconductors CMOS. Researchers at Purdue University have recently used this approach to develop an acoustic resonator based on commercially available field effect transistor FETs, which was presented in a paper published by Nature Electronics. FETs are a class of transistors that control the flow of electrical current in a semiconductor using an electrical field, which are commonly used to amplify signals and are the building blocks for all logic circuits. This paper is a culmination of years of work involving multiple graduate students and collaboration with semiconductor companies including IBM, Global Foundries, and Intel. Dana Winston, one of the researchers who carried out the study, told TechExplore. It began with the recognition of a need for high Q frequency sources embedded in microchips, CMOS, despite the huge barrier to entry for any new material or process into CMOS manufacturing. We decided to see how the existing technology could be leveraged to make these vibrating cavities. Acoustic resonators are electromechanical components that can amplify or absorb sound in specific frequency ranges and can be coupled to electronic circuits. Successfully developing these components using conventional CMOS based technologies entails tackling and overcoming numerous engineering challenges. To develop their devices, Winston and her colleagues first had to devise an effective strategy to efficiently drive and sense vibration within a microchip. We developed a electromechanical transducer using the front end of line MOS capacitors and transistors that make up the basic building block for logic circuits. Winston said, we then had to figure out what vibration could be launched and what structures would best confine them in a small region, including the transducers. This is a typical for microelectromechanical MEMS devices which are normally freely suspended. To demonstrate compatibility with a commercial process, Winston and her team had to ensure that no post processing was performed on their chip. To do this, they decided to use the many layered combined inner CMOS stack to engineer slow wave acoustic modes. This unique acoustic modes would be unable to propagate down into the substrate where they would be lost all up into the metal layers, that is, away from the transducers that drive and sense them. This was realized through the careful and creative design of phononic, phononic metamaterials that were based on existing CMOS structures. Acoustic vibration can be much less lossy than electrical signal typically used to make clocks and frequency shores on chip, Winston explained. The resonator we demonstrate in this paper can serve as low loss building blocks for clocks and analog signal processing, and their high frequency provides additional benefit for low noise and faster computation. The acoustic resonator developing by Winston and her colleagues are driven by capacitors that are inherently part of the CMOS stack. These capacitors are essentially transistors with source and drain contacts shortened together. Okay, great man, great. When a voltage is applied to a capacitor, the equal but opposite charge generated on the capacitor to opposing side are electrically attracted to each other. This results in the sequence squeezing of the film sandwich between the capacitor two sides. If we wingle that voltage, then the force on the plates also wingles, and we can launch acoustic waves through the time varying stretch kind of like a speaker, Winston said. But we don't want this vibration to just leak away, so we trap them. This is done by manipulating the properties of the surrounding material so that it simply won't let the wave propagate. To guide acoustic waves in a specific desired region, Winston and her colleagues used a series of periodic structures partnered in the CMOS layers. Due to the periodic nature, these structures only let certain frequencies of vibration through while reflecting other, that is, including the target frequency. We are basically guiding the wave only in the region where we want it using this periodic structure, Winston explained. The vibrations build up in this trap or resonance cavity as more and more vibrational energy is formed in using the capacitors. Finally, we sense these build up vibrations using standard transistors which are sensitive to stress. These transistors convert the mechanical vibrations into an electrical signal which can then be routed for use in nearby circuits. The acoustic resonators created by this team of researchers are the first vibrational structure developed to date that are embedded in CMOS technology and require no modification to the chip. While other approaches to integrating resonator with CMOS involve depositing films on the chip or etching away parts of the chip post fabrications, there is the only mechanical resonator that utilizes an unmodified standard CMOS process. Taking advantage of high performance transistor and NM scale features, size in standard IC gives us better performance at higher frequencies than possible with conventional MEMS process, Winston said. In addition, the direct integration with circuit in close proximity means simpler electrical routing, translating to better performance at gigahertz frequencies. The acoustic resonator design introduced by Winston and her colleagues could be implemented using any copper-based CMOS platform and can be optimized for even better performance. In the future, it could thus open valuable opportunities for the creation of smaller, highly performing acoustic resonators that are easier to implement on a large scale. The possible implications of our work include the development of on-chip clocks for low powers, small footprint, low-cost, robust, and secure microelectronic chips, Winston said. The idea is to replace off-chip frequency sources like the quartz crystal used today. The devices created by the team of researchers could also enable the creation of physical, chemical, and biological sensors with an integrated radio communication component. Finally, they could also help to enhance the security of hardware components, for instance, by creating unique acoustic fingerprints for each chip and allowing devices to access the integrity of packet chips using embedded ultrasonic transistor. We are most interested in working with CMOS foundries to take advantage of emerging materials in their technology to improve resonator performance. Vision added. Upcoming opportunity for use of electric material for enhanced electromechanical transduction are particularly exciting and promising. Once we have those in place, we can close the loop on the resonator and demonstrate high frequency, low noise clocks in CMOS. In their next studies, Winston and her colleagues would also like to explore the possibility of broadening acoustic manipulation capability using the metamaterial used in their recent work. For instance, they would like to explore their value for enhancing waveguiding, lensing convolution, and filtering tools. Moving on to our next topic, study identify neural connections that regulate prosocial and selfish behavior in mice. Okay. Let's see. Humans and animals can exhibit a wide variety of behaviors when interacting with their peers. This includes both pro-social behaviors, voluntary action aimed at supporting or helping others, and selfish or opportunistic behaviors which prioritize one's own needs or desires. Several post neuroscience studies have investigated the neural process involved in social connection, particularly in terms of the brain regions and neurotransmitters associated with bonding or intimacy. However, so far very little is known about the brain mechanism underlying selfish or altruistic actions. Researchers at the Italian Institute of Technology (IIT) and University of Milan have recently carried out a study aimed at filling this gap in the literature by examining the activation and firing of neurons in the mice brain as animals engage in prosocial or selfish behaviors. The paper published in Nature Neuroscience identifies a series of prosocial or selfish behaviors specific reciprocal connection between neurons in the prefrontal cortex and amygdala, two brains regions associated with complex behavioral planning and emotional regulations, respectively. Over the past year, I felt a loss of the common sense of collectiveness, even before the pandemic, that contributed to self centered concern and a disregard of other. Diego Sinchkia, one of the researchers who carried out the study, told Medical Express. Of course, recent physical distancing and quarantine policies further disrupted our daily social interaction and resulted in increased social isolation. The goal of my recent study was to understand the social factor and neurobiological determinants of allstrom and self interest. To examine the neural mechanisms underpinning altruistic and selfish behaviors, Sciascia and his colleagues first designed a new experimental task that would encourage these different types of behaviors in animals. This social decision making task offered animals two simple choices: sharing a reward with, with their peers or not. The researchers then used this task to perform an experiment on several adult mice. The task we used was modeled on the human game theoretical paradigm known as a dictator game, in which a dictator decides whether to share a reward with a con- conspecific. Skeshkia explained. In this task, we measured the neural activity of the basolateral nucleus of the amygdala that shows substantial differences between prosocial and selfish subjects. Essentially, Skia and his colleagues found that the mice' decision to share their food reward with other mice depended on several factors. This factor included the mice level of familiarity with their peers, their sex, previous social contacts, level of hunger, hierarchy status, and their emotional attunement. Subsequently, the researchers used chemogenetics techniques that entail the use of synthetic drugs to manipulate specific brain pathways to silence the activity of some neurons. This allowed them to determine whether silencing specific neurons automatically resulted in more prosocial or selfish behaviors. We observed that silencing the neurons in the prefrontal cortex that are connected to the basolateral amygdala modulated choices guided by self-interest, Skagia said. The result gathered by this team of researchers highlight the role of neurons in the basolateral amygdala BLA is in promoting pro-social decision. Specifically, they suggest that BLA neurons projecting on this prelimbic PL part of the prefrontal cortex mediate the development of a preference for altruistic choices in mice. In contrast, the preference for selfish behaviors appear to be mediated by the projection of the neurons in the PL prefrontal cortex to the BLA brain region. In the future, the finding of this study could pave the way for interesting new discoveries about the impact of interaction between neurons in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex on the nature of animal behaviors. The work by Shigia and his colleagues also outlines a possible neurobiological model of altruistic and selfish choices, which could help to better understand the issue with social decision making associated with some psychiatric disorders. As a result of the pandemic, more selfish and antisocial behavior have risen, thus threatening to multiply psychiatric diagnoses in the next few years, Shig added. Unraving the nature of brain mechanism underlying social decision making could represent a crucial step to suggest novel treatment for social dysfunctions and antisocial behavior that occur in several psychiatric conditions and neurodegenerative disorders. Building on the finding of a recent study, we are now exploring the role of previous experience and emotional memories on pro-social and selfish choices. Moving on to this next topic, having good friendship may make for a healthier gut microbiome. Okay, let's see. Social connection are essentially for good health and well-being in social animals such as ourselves and other primates. There is also increasing evidence that the gut microbiome through the so-called gut brain axis plays a key role in our physical and mental health, and that bacteria can be transmitted socially, for example through touch. So how does social connected connectedness translate in the composition and diversity of the gut microbiome. That is the topic of a new study in Frontiers in Microbiology on rhesus macaques macaca mulata. Okay. Lead author Dr. Catherine Johnson, a research associate at the Department of Experimental Psychology and the Department of Psychiatry of the University of Oxford, said, "Here we show that more sociable monkeys have a similar abundance of beneficial gut bacteria and a low abundance of potentially disease causing bacteria." Monkey Island. The scientists focused on a single social group with 22 males and 16 males between the ages of 6 and 20 years of rhesus macaques on the island of Cayo Santiago off the eastern coast of Puerto Rico. Macaques originally only lived in North Africa and Asia, but in 1938 a founder population of 409 rhesus macaques was moved from India to Sao Santiago. Today, more than 1,000 macaques live on the 15.2 hectare island, divided into several social groups. They range and forage freely, although their diet is supplemented daily with monkey show. Researchers do behavioral observations on the monkey each year. Between 2012 and 2013, the authors collected a total of 50 uncontaminated stool samples from their social group as a measure of social connected- connectedness. They used the time each monkey spent grooming or being groomed in 2012 and 2013 and his or her number of grooming partners. Social grooming. Co-author Dr. Carly Watson from the Institute of Cognitive Science at the University of Colorado Boulder explained macaques are highly social animals and is their main way of making and maintaining a relationship. So grooming provides a good indicator of social interactions. Johnson, Watson and the team analyzed Johnson, Watson and the team analyzed DNA sequence data from the stool samples to measure the composition and diversity of the gut microbial community and looked at the relationship with social connectivity. They also took into account sex, age, season, and rank within the group hierarchy. They focused on microbes that have been repeatedly shown to be either more or less abductant in people or rodents with autism like symptoms commonly accompanied by social disconnection or who are socially deprived. Socially, monkeys have more good microbes. Engagement in social interaction was positively related to the abductance of certain gut microbes with beneficial immunological functions and negatively related to the abductance of potentially pathogenic members of the microbiota, said co-author Dr. Philip Burnett, a professor from the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Oxford. For example, genera more abductant in the most socially monkey included phi cali bacterium and Prevotella. Conversely, the genus Streptococcus, which in humans can cause disease such as strep throat and pneumonia, was most abductant in less sociable monkeys. It is particularly striking that we find a strong positive relationship between the abductance of the gut microbe Fe- Calibacterium, and how social the bacterial how sociable sh- sociable the animals are. Fancy Calibacterium is well known for its potent and anti-inflammatory properties and is associated with good health, said Johnson. Cause and effect. But what drives the relationship between social connectedness and gut microbiome composition? Distinguishing between cause and effect isn't easy. The relationship between social behavior and microbial abductance may be the direct result of social transmission of microbes, for example, through grooming. It could be also an indirect effect, as monkeys with fewer friends may be more stressed, which then affects the abductance of these microbes, as well as behavior influencing the microbiome. We also know it is a reciprocal relationship whereby the microbiome can in turn affect the brain and behavior, said Johnson. Co-author Dr. Robin Dunbar, a professor from the Department of Experimental Psychology at the University of Oxford, said, as our society is increasingly substituting online interactions for real life ones, these important research findings underline the fact that as primates, we evolved not only in a social world but a microbial one as well. Moving on to this next topic. Death of a star reveals a mid-sized black hole lurking in a dwarf galaxy. Okay, let's see. An intermediate mass black hole lurking undetected in a dwarf galaxy revealed itself to astronomers when it gobbled up an unlucky star that strayed too close. The shredding of the star, known as tidal disruption event or TD, produced a flare of radiation that briefly outshone the combined stellar light of the host dwarf galaxy and could help scientists better understand the relationship between black holes and galaxies. The flare was captured by astronomers with the Young Supernova Experiment YSE, a survey designed to detect cosmic explosions and transient astrophysical events. An international team led by scientists at UC Santa Cruz, the Niels Bohr Institute at the University of Copenhagen, and Washington State University reported the discovery in a paper published November 10 in Nature Astronomy. This discovery has created widespread excitement because we can use tidal disruption events not only to find more intermediate mass black holes in quiet dwarf galaxies but also to measure the masses, said co-author Rand Foley, an assistant professor of astronomy and astrophysics at UC Santa Cruz, who helped plan the YSE survey. First author Charlotte Angus at, uh, at the Niels Bohr Institute said the team finding provide a baseline for future studies of mid-sized black holes. Okay, okay. The fact that we were able to capture this mid-sized black hole village it devoured a star offered us a remarkable opportunity to detect what otherwise would have been hidden from us, Angus said. What is more, we can use the properties of the flare itself to better understand this elusive group of middle weight black holes, which could account for the majority of black holes in the center of galaxies. Supermassive black holes are found at the center of all massive galaxies, including our own Milky Way. Astronomers conjectured that these massive beats, with millions or billions of times the mass of the sun, could have grown from smaller intermediate mass black holes with a thousand to hundreds of thousands of solar masses. One theory for how such massive black hole were assembled is that the early universe was rampant. The small dwarf galaxies with intermediate mass black holes. Over time, these dwarf galaxies would have merged or been gobbled up more by more massive galaxies, their cores combining each time to build up the mass in the center of the growing galaxy. This merger process would eventually create the supermassive black holes seen today. If we can understand the population of intermediate mass black holes out there, how many there are and where they are located, we can help determine if our theories of supermassive black hole formation are connected, said co-author Enrico Rems, professor of astronomy and astrophysics at UCSC, and Niels Bohr, professor at the University of Copenhagen. But do all dwarf galaxies have mid-sized black holes? That's difficult to assert because detecting intermediate mass black holes is extremely challenging, Remedios Rue said. Classic black hole hunting techniques, which look for actively feeding black holes, are often not sensitive enough to uncover black holes in the center of dwarf galaxies. As a result, only a minuscule fraction of dwarf galaxies is known to host intermediate black holes. Finding more mid-sized black holes with tidal disruption events could help to settle the debate about how supermassive black holes form. One of the biggest open questions in astronomy is currently how supermassive black holes form, said co-author Viviania Baldessar, professor of physics and astronomy at Washington State University. Data from the young supernova experiment enabled the team to detect the first sign of light as the black hole began to eat the star. Capturing this initial movement was pivotal to unlocking how big the black hole was because the duration of these events can be used to measure the mass of the central black hole. This method, which until now had only been shown to work well for supermassive black holes, was first proposed by Remedios Ruse and co-author Brina Mockler at UC Santa Cruz. This flare was incredibly fast, but because our YSC data gave us much more early information about the event, we were really able to pin down the mass of the black hole using it. Angus said. The study was based on data from observatory around the world, including the WM Kennec Observatory in Hawaii, the Nordic Optical Telescope, UC Lick Observatory, NASA Hubble Space Telescope, the International Gemini Observatory, the Palomar Observatory, and the Pan Stars Survey at Helen Kala Observatory. Moving on to his next topic, an early universe analog built in a lab in Germany. Okay. A team of researchers at Universität Heidelberg has built an early universe analog in their laboratory using chilled potassium atoms. In their paper published in the journal Nature, the group described their simulator and how it might be used. Silke Winfortner with the University of Nottingham has published a news and views piece in the same journal issue outlining the work done by the team in Germany. Understanding what occurred during the first few moments after the Big Bang is difficult due to the lack of evidence left behind that leaves astrophysicists with nothing but theory to describe what might have happened. To give credence to their theories. Scientists have built models, but scientists have built models that theoretically represent the condition being described. In this new effort, the researcher used a new approach to build a physical model in the laboratory to simulate conditions just after the Big Bang. Beginning with the theory that the Big Bang gave rise to an expanding universe, the researchers sought to create what they describe as a quantum field simulator. Since most theories suggest it was likely that the early universe was very cold, near absolute zero, the researcher created an environment that was very cold. Then they added potassium atoms to represent the universe they were trying to simulate. The atoms were chilled to just above absolute zero, slowed down using laser, resulting in the formation of a Bose-Einstein condensates, a type of superfluid. The researcher then used light from a specially designed projector to push the atom into desired arrangements under the set of superfluid excitons known as phonons propagate in two directions. By manipulating the speed of propagation, the researchers were able to mimic theorized wave propagation in the early universe. They suggest the behavior of the superfluid was somewhat similar to the physics that governed space-time and the production of particles in those moments just after the Big Bang. One of the first experiments conducted using the simulator involved mimicking the expansion of the early universe. The atom in the superfluid moved in a ripple pattern in waves similar to what has been predicted by theory in pairs of particles are being created. Okay, moving on to our next topic. Footprints indicate human presence in Spain in Middle Pleistocene 200,000 years earlier than previously thought. Okay, let's see. Researcher at GRS Radio Isotopes technician George Rivera from the University of Seville has participated in an incredible discovery that is unique in Europe. After employing an optically simulated luminance technique at the Center of Research for Research, Technology and Innovation Laboratories at the University of Sleve, CETUS, and at SINEC to Homian footprints found at Metal Lascanas in 2020. Rivera helped to determine that the footprints are in fact 200,000 years older than previously suspected. Okay. This would mean that pre Neanderthals would have lived in the Donana area under the Middle Pleistocene around 295 800 years ago to obtain 200 295,800 years ago. To obtain this result, the team used optically simulated luminance, a method used to find the absolute gas of sediments that have been fully exposed to sunlight. The researcher, led by Professor of Paleontology Eduardo Maidel at the University of Huelva, was published by Scientific Reports on October 19, 2022. Scientific milestone. The discovery in June 2020 of hominin footprints more than 100, 106 year old next to El Espero Metal Lascanus Huvla was a revolution for the scientific world, so much so that it was considered one of the most important discovery of the year. But now the publication of this paper has confirmed what some experts suspected at the time. Those footprints were much older and in fact 200,000 years older than previously thought. While it was previously placed in Upper Pleistocene, the evidence now points clearly to the Middle Pleistocene and it, to its being 2000 295,800 years old, making it a unique record in Europe since there is no better site in the world of hominin fossil footprints in terms of number, age, and area than that of the El Esprillo beach. Okay. After collecting sample from the various levels and another two later to compare the first result, the age of the fossil remains was established and points to the middle Pleistocene, a crucial moment between different climate climatic stages between a warm period, Miss 9, 36,000 36,000 years old to 300,000 years ago. In transition to Miss 8, 300,000 to 240,000 years ago, in which a major gals- glaciation galactian took place. Okay. The age is thus specified at 295 295 1800 years with a margin of error of 17,800 years according to the data collected from the four sample of sedimentary levels in the cliffs of El Esprillo where the site was found initially 87 footprints which now has a record of more than 300 footprints of which 10% are considered well preserved with the exception of those from metal lascanus. It is noted that no other hominin footprints are known between the climatic stages Miss 9 and Miss 8 of the Middle Pleistocene. That is why it is uncertain whether the footprints came from Neanderthals. But did the footprints came from Neanderthals? At first, the footprints were thought to be from Neanderthals, but that is now in doubt. The main hypothesis among the scientists is that the footprints came from individuals of the Neanderthal lineage with which Homo heidelbergensis and Homo neanderthalensis have been associated. The hypothesis that the prints belong to pre-Neanderthal hominids is feasible. Precisely for this reason, the metal lascanus footprints are now more valuable due to their contribution to the fossil records of hominids in the Middle Pleistocene, which is very poor in Europe because of the scarcity of deposits with footprints. Until now, according to the scientific reports paper, footprints this period have only been found at Terra Amato and Rocco Monfina, Italy, and were dated to between 380,000 years old and 345,000 years ago, with records of Homo heidelbergensis. They are the only ones older than those at Huvlia in this era. After these findings at the Benchashki Vash, France, and the Therapeuta Greece sites from 236,000 to 130,000 years ago are attributed to Homo thaliensis. In this context, the length range of all footprints found at metal lascanus from 14 to 29 centimeters is similar to that found at European sites such as Therapetra 14-15 centimeters, Rocco Monfina 24 to 27 centimeter, and Terra Amantha 24 centimeter. In my case, the experts highlight the singularity of the metal lascanus discovery, whose new dating challenges the exciting paradigms and has required deep analysis before any conclusion could be accepted. The new technology now establishes a chance in the scenario that they prevailed on the coast of the Gulf of Cadiz with human settlements in a more temperate and humid climate than in the rest of Europe, with higher water tables and abundant vegetation. In the same period, the sea level would have been about 60 meters below its current level. This implies that the coast would be more than 20 kilometers from where it is today, which is how there would have been a great coastal plain with large flood prone areas in which the footprints discovered in mid 2020 would have been made. The site's new dating also affects the vertebrate animals found, since the Homian traces there also included footprints of large mammals such as straight-tusked elephants, gigantic bulls, dogs, and boars. It was the fauna that inhabited Donanon 300 years ago and not 100 years ago, as other investigators stated. Moving on to our next topic, it's going it's gonna be the last topic of this podcast. So let's read it. Team uses AI and satellite images to release first ever global estimates for road transportation greenhouse emissions. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that the transportation sector accounts for approximately 27% of all greenhouse gas emissions annually in the United States, and the emission from road transportation driven by creating internal combustion vehicles account for a large majority of that. For years, researchers have tried to measure this emission more closely, but exciting inventories are often outdated, incomplete, and limited. Now, scientists at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory (APL) in Laurel, Maryland, have leveraged artificial intelligence and machine learning (ML) to produce accurate estimates for road transportation emission of the top 500 emitting sites worldwide. In particular, we were able to estimate the average annual daily traffic on individual road segments in urban areas and combined this with localized estimates of vehicle emissions factors to produce a total emission estimate, explained Marisa Hughes, and the Assistant Program Manager for Environmental Resilience in APL Research and Exploratory Development Mission Area. The ability to calculate emissions per road segment provides an unprecedented level of detail and global coverage, said Hughes, who helps manage the laboratory climate change efforts. The combination of ML predicted road activity along with region specific emission factors, data centers, automated accurate global timely and actionable road transportation greenhouse gas emission estimates, Actionable in the keyword, Hughes said, you can't change what you can't measure. And that's a big challenge when it comes to tackling climate change. We need to know where the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. But that means accounting for a vast number of minuscule contribution across time and geography, making the invincible visible. There are an estimated 1.4 billion motor vehicles in the world. An APL team of experts in the remote sensing and computer vision thought they could measure the greenhouse gases from those vehicles by pulling signature of emission from visual satellite data, essentially making the invincible visible. They set out they said about looking at existing emission data, correlating it with those images, teasing out anything they could with neural networks. Then the team realized there was another way to address the challenge. Hughes said APL had experience in mapping patterns of life for the intelligence community on a project called Functional Map of the World, where experts mapped out land use and structured and used satellite data from different times of day to understand and differentiate between similar looking structures like office buildings versus apartment complexes. We thought, what if we took the same pattern of life analysis and instead of focusing on buildings, we looked at networks of roads that were connecting them, recalled Derek Rowland, a senior ML researcher at APL. We built a deep neural network that would take inputs that are available globally, satellite imagery, road network data, and population. Because some areas had fine grained emission and vehicle count data, we were able to train our machine learning models with the ground truth data on vehicle activity there and then applied the model prediction forged at the country level and most recently for the top 500 cities globally. He continued. This work contributes a major piece to a larger effort to monitor greenhouse gas emission on a global scale conducted by Climate Trace, tracking real time atmospheric carbon emissions, and international coalition created to make meaningful climate action faster and easier by independently tracking greenhouse gas emission with unprecedented detail and speed. This work represents how APL is bringing its unique expertise to make sustainable contribution to the global challenges of climate challenge. It's a great example of how our unique skills and capability across machine learning, satellite imaging, and systems modeling can be applied to understand and one day solve complex problems, said Bobby Armigod, who, along the hugest co-leads the lab-wide focus on climate change research. On November 9th, Climate Trace released the most detailed inventory of greenhouse gas emission ever compiled, providing asset level emission data for 81,087 individual scored worldwide, and APL transportation data was a part of that release. In addition to releasing facility level information, Climate Trace updated its independent inventory of emission from every country to include data from 2021, providing a full view of annual greenhouse gas emissions since 2015, the year of the Paris Agreement, an international treaty on climate change, bringing radical transparency to global emission. Members of the Climate Trace Coalition have rallied around a goal. They all radical transparency. It's about knowing where all the greenhouse gases are, where the emissions are coming from, and at the same time being very open about how we are calculating those emissions. He just said that's really big challenge, but if you have got the radical transparency, Then you can dive in and start to do some analysis and some comparison to figure out what's working and what's not in terms of mitigating emissions. One of the coalition's goal for the coming year is to understand how to bring differently sourced, overlapping data sets and emission inventories together to create a new best estimate of what's really going on. That stream of radical transparency and knowing where all of the emission are coming from in real time with every new satellite image is still a ways ahead of us, you just said, but now it feels within reach. Okay, okay. So, I mean, of course, at last, I just want to say, you guys, keep researching, stay curious, stay healthy.